Hey everybody, welcome back to another Nature's Always Right video. Today I have Amanda Vanhoozier with me. She has been in the ag industry for many years, over 30 years I think, or more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, much more than that even. So she's a wealth of knowledge. She's worked in a lot of different avenues. She's the Dallas Farmers Market manager. She works for Slow Foods as the chairman here in Dallas. And as well as she has a flower business selling bouquets, edibles, dried flowers, doing different artistic types of things with flowers as well. So I'm really excited to share her experience with you. We can learn a lot of things from her, and we're really going to dig deep on flowers and having that as a business for market gardening and small farmers.
Good.
So yeah, thanks for joining me.
You bet.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about your career. Like how did you get started in agriculture in the first place, and what drew you to it, and why have you stayed in it so long?
Oh, okay. In the 70s, I was a teacher, and I found out that you could teach a lot of the disciplines through having the kids do outdoor gardening. And so that, actually we started indoors in the classroom with sprouts, and because I was always interested in growing. So then it became this real important thing you could really teach a lot about the environment through the garden and taking care of plants. It's always like save the whales, but if you have a plant and you're taking care of that plant, and you're seeing the conditions on it, that I feel like at a very small level for young students that was important.
Absolutely. Yeah, whenever I've kids come out to my farm, or they're at the farmers market and they see the vegetables, they're super engaged with it. They're really curious, and it's a super important thing that we got to do is get the kids in the dirt or in the soil and learning about all this stuff. It's super important.
So that was the first thing I started doing, and writing curriculum for that. And so I had to learn more about growing because I had the gardens, and then started community gardens and growing. And really my focus was on the environment, because I was in environmental studies was my thing, and water conservation, composting, all of that can be circled back into growing. So that was like I was always training people, but during that time I also wanted to you grew food, and
Right.
and so then you were started looking at the nutrition piece of that.
Yeah, absolutely. The nutrition piece was a big thing for me.
Yeah.
As well.
So after that, at the community gardens, people wanted to come and buy produce from the gardens. We were a donation garden, and so we were like, no, we're not selling it. But it became clear that people were seeking out fresh produce. So that was also the struggle of small family farms. So I felt like I needed to create a market for those.
Okay. So
And that was the foundation of the first market.
wow. So at that time there was no Dallas Farmers Market.
There was a Dallas Farmers Market.
Okay.
I started a suburb of Dallas is Coppell,
Okay.
and it was a Coppell Farmers Market, which is still going today. That was in 2002.
That's so cool. Wow. So
Yeah.
17 years.
Yeah, amazing.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
It's amazing hearing the impact that people have, over a period of time, and all the people that have eaten healthier food and supporting all these farmers because of your actions. It's fantastic.
Yeah, bringing a good market for the farms, where they didn't have to compete against the resellers.
Yeah.
You all know about that. And that was why I was asked to come to the Dallas Farmers Market, was because I had this big network of farms already, and to bring those into the Dallas Farmers Market.
So then, I guess kind of jumping a little more forward in your career, now you're deeply involved with flowers. So why did you pick that as your farming enterprise, and how did you get interested in it?
Actually, when I was in college, my grandparents in Ohio left their family farm because nobody in the family wanted it. And it was this draw for me. I could go there and I could grow flowers and sell them to the chefs in the restaurants in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
And that was like this dream. But, then you're like, I'm working on my master's. I've got, I'm going to move to Dallas. and that didn't happen. But all those years, I kept thinking that I'm going to continue that dream. And so now that I left the Dallas Farmers Market in 2017, and it was like, now I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do. And all the research, all the farm visits, it kind of put it all together for me. And so I was like, I'm going to start a flower farm on a small scale, just to have something that I get back in my hands, back in the dirt too.
That's cool. Yeah, you probably missed it after.
Oh yeah, because you worked yourself out of growing. At the community gardens, I had garden plots at all the gardens, so I could show people how to garden. But this was my chance to do what everybody else was doing. It was like, we got to start a little small farm.
Yeah, and I love that you always kept that dream alive. And you had the courage, and even at a little bit older age, when maybe a lot of people think like, like physically I can't do farming or I can't do these things, but you can, and I love seeing that example of leadership as well. So what kind of flowers are you growing, or tell us more about, are you selling bouquets or what other?
Well, first I'll start with the land.
Yeah.
So I had this piece of land that is actually in an urban area. But when you go out there, because it's on a half acre, maybe larger than that because it goes down to the creek, you always feel very peaceful out there. So I wanted to take that space, and it's 10,000 square feet, which is about a fourth an acre.
Nice, yeah.
A nice size. And so I broke ground in March 2018.
Okay.
I had started, I took a bedroom, made it into a grow room with tiers and lights. And so I had plants growing from January to, we can plant March 15th here. That's our last frost. And then, so I had plants ready to go, but I didn't break ground until March 3rd, getting ready. And that was like 15 4-foot by 50-foot rows.
Okay. Yeah.
And I wanted to double dig it all, because you're like, I'm not going to break this up. So I actually have a broad fork that I got at an auction, and I was like, yay. And it was just a lot of work. So when I started in growing, I was here in Dallas. That's the summer for us. And so I started with zinnias, sunflowers. I couldn't get celosia to germinate because it was still cool. The soil was still too cool.
Oh, okay.
I had to keep seeding that, and actually I started inside so I could get the heat pads under it. And then gomphrena, and then amaranth, and some other things. So I sold for 26 weeks this summer. Weekend after weekend of making bouquets from my cut flowers.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. Who are some of your customers? How did you sell these flowers?
Well, fortunately, since I had been at the Dallas Farmers Market, there was a group there, was a nonprofit, and they were sourcing from farms and we have an indoor section of the Dallas Farmers Market. And so this indoor section is Market Provisions Company, started a storefront. Okay. So the farmers, as they sell for the weekend, and then they could have product at the shop for the week because it was open 7 days a week. So that became a really good outlet. So I could take bouquets down on Friday at the market, and it was indoors, so it's air conditioned, better than standing out in the heat of the summer in Dallas. And then I would go down and I would stand and make bouquets on Sundays. Usually Sundays because people are more coming to the market to get stuff for the week. Whereas Saturday was more a destination market because you're in downtown Dallas, and then you're going to go here, and then you're going to eat over there. And it's like, oh, what am I going to do with these flowers? They have to have water.
It's a good consideration.
So there was always, I had to trial that out and see where it worked.
Yeah, that's one of the trickiest things is figuring out all those details about
where
selling.
The market is.
Where the customer wants to really buy. And so we also talked about this week kind of some other interesting things that you're doing with flowers so that you're reducing the waste and maximizing your profit. Like I think you talked about dry flowers.
Right.
What are you doing with all the dried stuff?
So the thing when I started, I wanted to be small enough and do my production to what I think I could sell. And so I wanted to always keep that tight so I didn't have waste when you're growing cut flowers, if you cut them all the time, they will continue to keep growing. But if you leave them out there, even deadheading isn't the same as cutting them when they just start to open.
Okay.
So
What's
you're
deadheading?
cutting.
I don't know.
So a lot of cutting gardens, they'll flower and then they start going dead on the plant.
Okay.
Well, that means they've already been pollinated. They've already are developing their seed.
I see.
So the plant is like, okay, I'm kind of done now. But when you're cutting these flowers as low as you can, so you get good stems, when you're making those cuts, when they're just beginning to open before they're pollinated, the plant continues to try to pump out because they want to propagate.
Right. Yes, of course.
So the plant will continue to pump out.
I see.
So, but when you cut, you want to sell all those. I mean, within days. I mean, it's fresh flowers. So anything that wasn't good enough to go to the market or I had excess of, then I would hang upside down and dry those out. And when I dry flowers, I did. They say to use silicone gel or something. Of course, I'm low input. I'm like, you can also use sand, just plain old play sand in boxes. So, like even the flowers that are real short stem, you couldn't put in a bouquet. You cut those off and then turn them upside down in the sand and put more sand on them.
The petal and the bud goes inside the
they
sand.
will come out just like a zinnia will come out just looking just like it was alive. I mean, it's just perfect.
That is neat.
Yeah,
wow.
So I have all these dried flowers, and then in the fall, you kind of get into that feeling of the fall look. And so I had wild grapes out there, which I made grapevines for and trained them a little bit so I could cut the ends of those and make little wreaths by twirling them around.
Wow.
And my favorite wreaths were the size of my palm, and I called them woodland wreaths. And so I took a few dried flowers, just hot glued them on there, and people really like those. And they're kind of cute. They're small.
Yeah.
Young people like petite and simple, and then they also really like the dirtier looking flowers, which is like the shabby chic kind of look. You know, like brown flowers are real popular, or flowers that have browning edges, which.
Who would have thought?
I can grow those.
Yeah.
So those I could do. We had an early freeze in 2018, the third week of October, and usually it's the third or fourth week of November. So I was like, kind of like, oop, now and I needed another month of sales, so I started making the wreaths and making bigger wreaths and things.
Really cool. That's so creative. Yeah. I love that. So, I mean, did you kind of come up with that idea on your own? It just kind of came to you? Or
there is Instagram.
Yeah.
There is a big group of flower farmers that are on Instagram. So if you search that, you're learning nationally who the players are. I'm part of the Association for Specialty Cut Flowers.
Okay.
So they have conferences, and actually I started with a workshop from them that was all the big players in the nation, which sets you up right. And then being a member, it also gives you all the resources that are on, that they have online. They also have a quarterly magazine. So I guess the connections to all the other flower farmers.
Yeah, that's fantastic. There's so many resources out there that especially nowadays, that there's just so many different ways you can go with this business. And I know, a lot of the microgreen farmers are growing flowers, those really specialty things that are very expensive, and so you can do edible flowers also. Is there any other ways that to make money selling flowers?
Well, I also met a fabrics. She's a natural fabrics person who's dyeing with natural dyes.
Wow.
And so we were at the same market, and she came over and she goes, "What do you do with your old flowers?" And she wanted spent flowers. And when I took out my amaranth, she came and she bought all my amaranth as I'm taking it down. I was going to compost it.
Right.
And she bought it so that she could make dyes for her fabric and yarn.
That is really
so
cool.
there's extensions to growing cut flowers.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that, like, all the steps along the way, from the freshest possible flowers to even the kind of decaying, dead-looking ones that you turn to art, and then the final stage where you're just going to take the plant out. Someone else wants it to make a product out of it. And natural dyes are incredible because a lot of our clothing, it's like a chemical dye, so it's probably not too good for our skin, I would assume. So that's another cool industry that would be great to see develop more, I think.
Yeah, and I think what I'm working with Profound Foods, which is an aggregation of farms to Dallas chefs, and so I think this coming year, part of my market is going to be to sell to the restaurants for their. If you're a farm to table restaurant, if you have flowers on the tables or at your hostess table, those should be local flowers, and you should be promoting that. So that will be another avenue. But this edible flowers, I keep getting asked, well, are your flowers edible? So I know that the Profound Micro Farms grows a lot of the micro and the little flowers. But there's also needs for outdoor grown flowers in that industry.
So as an outdoor soil grower, I'd love to know more about how your bed prep is, or what kind of nutrients or compost you're adding, and how that works with flowers. Because I don't know really anything about growing flowers. I'm basically just a vegetable grower. So what does that look like for you?
So it was real important for me to have good soil because that's where I come from, doing everything sustainably, and so. When I started, I actually purchased some compost. I really don't like to bring something in from outside, but I didn't know what had been part of the land that was there. So when I broke ground and broke up. With a broad fork, you're not turning it. You're more like opening it up.
Right.
And I know that a 1/2-inch compost can make a difference.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to waste this, and get more than that. I probably went with 1 inch and put the compost out. I have unusually sandy soil in an area that's caliche clay. So fortunately, when I first went out and put a shovel in, I was like, oh, this is going to be wonderful because your caliche clay is really hard to break.
Yeah, like at Dawson's farm, the clay was crazy. I
thought
and
he's got clay. Rocks on top of that. I use compost, and then I'm really big into drenches.
Oh, nice.
I'm making like a foliar feed, but you're drenching. So I have a compost pile at my own garden, but since I'm connected with the community gardens where I started those, what I like about the community gardens, they make compost and they turn it every 7 to 10 days. And I had a lot of master composting classes, so we've trained a lot of people. So that group is turning out some really fine compost.
Fantastic.
And it's also very diverse. So when you're making a compost tea, I would take some of my compost and my worm bin, my worm castings,
Excellent.
and then I would go by the community garden, and I'm talking like that much. You don't need a whole lot because the microbes in that much compost can make a difference.
Yeah, wow.
So I would take all those, and then I did more of the kind where you use a vortex.
Oh, fantastic.
So I wasn't a brewer, 24-hour. I was afraid of going anaerobic. So I use a paint stir on a drill and just whip it. Whip those microbes off. And then after several minutes of that with water, and I have well water too, so I'm fortunate not to have to use the city water. I would put in a feed for those microbes and let it sit for about 20 minutes.
What do you feed the microbes?
Hydrolyzed fish fertilizer, and then also kelp.
And kelp, excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I started with molasses, but then I found out that I really didn't need to grow bacteria.
Yes.
I needed more of the fungal.
Yes, that's something when I started making tea, I was adding molasses too, and then Elaine Ingham talks a lot about let's push the fungal growth way more.
Yes.
So that's
it's
awesome.
the same with flowers.
Yes.
And really, in sandy soil, you already have a lot of the bacteria.
Right. Okay.
So I didn't want to promote that.
Yeah.
And then there was a friend of mine was really into making compost. So we're fortunate here to have the Texas Worm Ranch. They make their own castings, but they do it with a lot of fungal breakdown at the end.
Interesting.
So I buy her worm castings because I was using my worm bin, but I wasn't taking care of it well enough. So when we looked at it under the microscope, we realized that there was pieces of anaerobic that probably got in. And it's really hard to get that out once it's there. So I had to go more pure with that. So this is the secret, was to drench the soil, and then I put some minerals in because I didn't know I did that. But every week on Tuesday, I would make the compost tea, and I did a foliar feed. Simple. I have a watering can. I walk up and down the rows. It just makes you feel good. So after it sat for about 20 minutes, I'd filter it, through a sieve, and then run it down the rows. In Dallas last summer, it got to be 114 degrees. That week we didn't know how we were going to make it. Other growers around in North Texas were saying, I'm done.
Wow.
But I had the drip irrigation in. Okay. I had the foliar feed, I think, actually pulled everything through because the plants were healthy enough and strong enough. And I pumped blooms. I didn't miss a week. The blooms just kept coming through all that time.
That's amazing, because typically when plants go above a certain degree, they stop blooming. They can't
they're in stress.
Yeah, they can't do it. Do you also use like low tunnels or some sort of shading?
I didn't use any shading, and I'm full sun all day, full sun. Wow. Yeah, you're like, how are those plants doing that? Yeah. But when I put my celosia starts out that I started inside, that was probably 98, 101 days, and I did. I had agribon, and I staked it and tried to do that with a shade, and I did it in a section, and then the other section I got lazy and said, I'm just going to put the rest of this tray through that section. Neat. It actually, they held up in that, but I'd hardened them off. Okay. I had hardened them off so they could handle it. Okay. But I was surprised how resilient plants can be to the heat if they've been staged up to do that.
I see. I mean, kind of train them, getting them ready.
Yeah, you can't just stick a plant out in that heat, but if they're preparing, so when temperatures rise slowly, you're good. Okay. Same with temperatures going down. Okay. So this last week, I didn't cover all winter, so I've got my hardy annuals in. But as the temperature, was hovering 40 degrees in the day and then going to 27, I didn't cover during that time. But then 2 weeks ago, it went to almost 80 degrees, and 3 days of 70, 80, and then in 24 hours we were at 27. Oh my gosh, I knew, the plants could take that 27 before, but after this kind of growth, so that's when I came in to cover.
Interesting, that's a great tip. So that huge temperature swing is when...
Fast, when it swings fast, the plant doesn't have time to adjust its cells.
Okay, very cool. Yeah. So that's a great time
to then this morning I uncovered them and they looked great.
Woo-hoo. Yeah, nice.
We made it.
Survived,
Yeah, good, because it's Valentine's Day next Thursday.
Okay, that must be one of the biggest weeks of the year.
Yeah, I have pre-orders in, and I've got flowers in the cooler that I've picked last week. I'll be cutting later today, tomorrow, to get ready for Valentine's Day.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Very cool. And when you're selling, or how do you take in? You said you took pre-orders. How are you doing some of your pre-ordering?
I have a blog, justpicktx.com, and I was running the blog because I felt like there was a gap between customers and understanding local and farms being able to push it out online. So I actually started it for an online education and support for farms after I left the Dallas Farmers Market. And so since I built that website, I could easily put in a WooCommerce into WordPress. And then I could just put my orders, so it could be pre-order through Square on there.
That's really cool.
And that way I have the orders because I don't have a shop, but I do sell at Market Provisions. So they could advertise. I'm taking pre-orders. I could advertise. And then I'll go down there on Wednesday with my bouquets that are ordered, but I'll take extras for the people who are forgetful or told, you better do something. Last minute, I got to get something.
You don't want to forget Valentine's Day, that's for sure.
No.
Wow, that's so cool. That's something I'm looking into doing for my farm this season. I don't have an online ordering system, but it's something I think I really want to use, and must be has it made it a lot more efficient and just kind of a lot more smoother and save you time as a farmer?
Oh, absolutely. Save you time. It saves people because so we're used to buying things online and using our credit cards, but also in your business end of your business, it goes straight into your QuickBooks.
Great
so
point.
when
That's
you're buying online, it's better than me taking all this cash and trying to write out, because I do wholesale and sales, which here in Texas, the sales of cut flowers has a tax. So you got to track the tax and pay your sales and use tax.
Interesting. So then that's what I have to do. I have to come home, then I input it into QuickBooks, and I'm doing that all the time. Whereas
it's automatically.
It's
you
integrated.
just accept in your QuickBooks your bank, and then you just add it to your QuickBooks.
So they'll order through.
Click.
Wow, that's so neat. It just pulls all the data from WooCommerce and throws it in.
Yeah,
that is neat. I mean, that's a huge time saver.
Oh yeah.
So that's that's what's so cool. There's so many new technologies out now. They're making small farming so much more accessible, where you can actually make a living doing this because of all these time-saving tools, and it's so cool to see how it's all working now.
So another thing that I didn't know was going to happen when I started the flower farm is that there are a lot of young florists that have gone through internships with a florist to learn how to design, but then they get interested in how are these flowers grown and what's local, because younger people think about that. And so young florists have been reaching out to me to come out and work on my farm. Which is a great advantage for me because they can get down on the ground and jump back up. And so, like all the transplanting we've done, having some young people come out and help me. But it's also nice to have someone to talk to about it, and have people come alongside. And those florists are going back to their, where they're working, and some of them are freelance, so they're in a lot of florists, and they're talking about their experience on a flower farm, so you're increasing the knowledge in the industry that there are local flowers.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And we're increasing the local pollinator population by doing this. And that's, so it's fantastic. It's so great to see so much interest in all these different avenues of small farming now. And I think a lot of people used to think that farming was just growing vegetables or fruit and stuff. But there's, as we've seen, especially at this conference, there's just so many ways to get into small farming now. And I love that we're sharing these different avenues in different ways, different methods from all ages. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge with us. And if people would like to learn more about flowers and what you do, where can they find more information about you and share your social media and everything?
Okay, my blog is Just Picked TX, like you just picked it. And then my flower farm is Bishop Hill Farm Flowers, and that's on Instagram and Facebook.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'll put all the links down in the description for that. And thank you so much, Amanda, for taking the time to speak with me and share all of your amazing knowledge with us. I know it's going to be very valuable.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.